Blackbeard turned himself into a living nightmare with a burning beard and years of impossible victories. Yet one carefully planned ambush in the shallow waters of Ocracoke ended in a blood-soaked duel so savage that his severed head was hung from a Royal Navy bowsprit to prove that even the most feared pirate in history could not escape the Empire's revenge. Enjoy the video, and don't forget to subscribe. Picture the year 1718. Stand upon the shallow waters of Ocracoke Inlet before sunrise, and breathe the mixture of salt spray, decaying marsh grass, damp oak planking soaked with years of Atlantic brine, pine tar warming beneath the first pale light, stale gunpowder lingering inside the seams of weathered cannon barrels, and the sour odor of unwashed sailors preparing for another uncertain morning. A faint breeze rattled every block and pulley, while patched canvas snapped against the yards with a dry cracking sound that echoed across the quiet lagoon. Beneath the black flag floated the notorious pirate Edward Teach, remembered as Blackbeard, commanding the sloop Adventure after deliberately running his larger flagship Queen Anne's Revenge aground only months before, measuring roughly 60 feet along the gun deck and carrying a hull strengthened by heavy oak futtocks and closely spaced frames beneath pronounced tumble home. Adventure sacrificed broadside power for remarkable maneuverability within the shallow channels of North Carolina. Teach understood hydrography as well as violence, choosing anchorages where Royal Navy ships of deeper draft risked grounding upon shifting sandbars. His crew followed articles of agreement promising shares of captured prizes while accepting extraordinary danger in return. Powder barrels remained carefully sealed against moisture because black powder containing approximately 75% saltpeter, 15% charcoal, and 10% sulfur rapidly lost efficiency when exposed to humid coastal air. Flintlock pistols rested inside leather holsters coated with wax, while cutlasses received layers of rendered animal fat to resist corrosion from airborne salt crystals that silently consumed unprotected iron. Blackbeard's terrifying reputation depended upon calculated theater as much as battlefield skill. Before combat, so he twisted slow-burning hemp matches beneath his broad hat, allowing glowing strands to surround his bearded face with thick sulfurous smoke that transformed him into an almost supernatural figure through the frightened eyes of approaching sailors. Psychological warfare frequently decided engagements before the first boarding axe struck timber. Merchant captains transporting sugar to indigo, tobacco, or manufactured goods often surrendered immediately rather than risk splintering broadsides. Yet during the autumn of 1718, Virginia Governor Alexander Spotswood secretly financed an expedition despite uncertain legal authority because Blackbeard continued threatening regional commerce. Lieutenant Robert Maynard received command of 2 lightly armed sloops detached from HMS Pearl. Their vessels mounted few heavy guns, forcing dependence upon disciplined musket fire and close-quarters combat instead of traditional naval artillery exchanges. Every sailor carried smoothbore flintlock muskets, firing lead balls nearly 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Iron ramrods compressed powder charges tightly against the breech, while paper cartridges accelerated loading, although experienced crews still required 20 seconds or more between accurate shots under battlefield pressure. Even slight hesitation allowed an enemy swordsman to cross the narrowing distance. During the night before the encounter, Blackbeard anchored confidently within Ocracoke's protected waters, believing shallow depths shielded him from meaningful pursuit. Shortly after dawn on November 22nd, 1718, Maynard's expedition entered the inlet. Hidden sandbanks immediately proved deadly. One attacking sloop grounded hard, exposing vulnerable timbers beneath the keel, while sailors desperately shifted weight and threw supplies overboard to regain movement. Blackbeard instantly recognized the opportunity. Adventure's cannon opened fire with devastating precision. Bronze guns, cast with high copper content, strengthened by controlled additions of tin, absorbed explosive pressure while resisting catastrophic fractures more effectively than brittle iron pieces. Each ignition began when sparks from glowing slow match reached finely granulated priming powder within the touch hole, transmitting flame into the main charge, where expanding gases accelerated iron shot through the barrel at extraordinary velocity. Cannonballs smashed into oak hull planking, tearing apart long wood fibers instead of producing neat circular holes. Razor-sharp splinters erupted through crowded decks, often inflicting wounds more horrific than the iron projectiles themselves. Blood mixed with seawater, while shattered rigging collapsed across struggling crews. Maynard understood prolonged artillery exchange guaranteed defeat. He ordered many surviving men below deck, intentionally making his vessel appear nearly abandoned. Blackbeard interpreted the apparent silence as evidence that another crushing broadside had broken enemy resistance. Confident victory stood within reach. He ordered grappling lines thrown, heavy iron hooks bit into opposing rails while hemp cables tightened between both hulls. Pirate boarders surged across the narrowing gap, carrying boarding axes, pistols, knives, and curved cutlasses sharpened upon sandstone wheels until their edges reflected morning sunlight. The confined deck transformed into a maze of slipping boots, broken spars, drifting smoke, and desperate shouting. At Maynard's signal concealed, sailors exploded upward from below with loaded muskets and fixed determination. The sudden volley struck pirates at point-blank range. Dense white smoke instantly obscured friend and enemy alike, while sparks drifted across blood-soaked planks. Within seconds, disciplined formations dissolved into individual duels where physical endurance mattered as much as weapon skill. Every movement risked slipping upon wet timber coated with seawater, powder residue, and expanding pools of blood. Blackbeard fought with astonishing resilience according to multiple contemporary accounts. Witnesses later claimed he suffered numerous sword wounds and several gunshot injuries before finally collapsing. Whether every reported wound occurred exactly as described remains debated, yet surviving testimony consistently portrays extraordinary determination. He fired pistols until empty before drawing additional weapons tucked beneath his broad belt. Flint-striking hardened steel generated incandescent particles exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius, igniting priming powder inside the lockpan before the main charge erupted with blinding flash and deafening concussion. Smoke reduced visibility so severely that combatants often recognized opponents only at arm's length. Maynard himself reportedly crossed blades with Blackbeard amid the confusion. Steel edges collided repeatedly, sending bright fragments flying, while shock traveled through wooden sword grips into exhausted hands. Around them, bodies covered the deck, alongside shattered casks, snapped belaying pins, torn canvas, broken muskets, and tangled running rigging hanging from damaged masts. Every surviving sailor understood the battle would end only when one commander no longer stood. At last, Blackbeard staggered beneath accumulated wounds and collapsed upon Adventure's deck. His death ended one of the most infamous pirate careers of the Golden Age. But the violence continued even after breathing ceased. Lieutenant Maynard ordered the pirate captain's head severed and suspended from the bowsprit as unmistakable proof that Edward Teach would never terrorize Atlantic shipping again. The grisly trophy also served practical purposes, allowing authorities to claim official rewards while broadcasting unmistakable evidence across every harbor visited during the return voyage. Pirates relied heavily upon reputation, and governments answered with equally theatrical demonstrations of state authority. Blackbeard's remaining crew faced capture, trial, and execution as imperial officials sought to restore confidence in maritime commerce, protected through expanding Royal Navy patrols, stricter enforcement against illegal privateering, and increasingly coordinated colonial administration. Legends soon exaggerated the final battle, with stories of headless bodies swimming around the ship. Yet documented reality remained sufficiently brutal without supernatural additions. A carefully planned naval ambush, disciplined deception, intimate knowledge of shallow coastal navigation, and relentless close-quarters combat brought an end to the pirate whose flaming beard had once convinced countless victims that the devil himself commanded the sea.